come first serve basis. I request you to please register to ensure that you can participate in this beautiful experience. There are going to be presentations from a sommelier, from the Master of Wine, Liam Stevenson, a brand owner, Princess Sabina from Italy, who will be talking to you about Tuscany wines, and an importer, and conversations will revolve around the charms of building a relationship with wine. Just a reminder that this is for pre-registered participants only. And now for our pre-lunch session. The theme of this Golden Jubilee Convention of Fhrai is celebrating the past and shaping the future. We are fortunate to have with us 5 luminaries from the hospitality industry who will throw light on the shaping of the future of the Indian hospitality industry. This panel discussion will be extremely interesting as we have an excellent mix of panelists, right from the general managers of luxury hotels to a master of wine. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the star session, Voice from the Top, celebrating the past, shaping the future. Our moderator is Mr. Mandeep Lamba. I request Mr. Lamba to please proceed to the stage. Mr. Lamba is the Managing Director of Jones Lang LaSalle, India. Having spent over 30 years in the industry, he has worked with international hotel brands such as Choice Hotels and the Intercontinental Hotel Group. Besides stint as president of ITC Fortune Park Hotels. An established industry leader, Mandeep is respected for his insights into the Indian hospitality industry, having won several awards and recognitions for his accomplishments. Please welcome Mr. Lamba. Joining him are the following panelists: Mr. Param Kanampilli, Chairman and Managing Director, Concept Hospitality. Param runs an environmentally friendly chain of hotels under the Fern brand. Together with GC Hospitality, they manage 45 resorts in India, China, and Sri Lanka. Please welcome Mr. Kanampilli. It's my pleasure to now invite Mr. Zubin Songadwala, General Manager, ITC Maurya. Zubin's first assignment was at ITC Windsor in Bangalore, and since then he has held senior management positions at ITC Welcome Group Hotels in Agra and Mumbai. He was part of the pre-opening team of ITC Maratha Mumbai and was instrumental in setting up the F&B operations of the hotel. Please welcome Mr. Songadwala. I now request Mr. K. Mohan Chandran, Area Director, Hyderabad, and General Manager, Taj Krishna, to please join us on stage. With over 25 years of experience in the hospitality industry, Mohan Chandran has held numerous positions across properties with the Taj Group of Hotels. An alumnus of the Indian Institute of Hotel Management, Pusa, New Delhi, he has worked across all hotel functions and in multiple locations with the Taj Group. It is my pleasure to now invite the next panelist, Professor David Foskett, the member of British Empire and a highly respected hospitality personality and an emeritus professor, University of West London. He is also a prolific author, a member of Academy of Culinary Arts, and a fellow of the Institute of Hospitality. Today he consults several global hospitality projects. Our next panelist is Mr. Liam Stevenson. Glad to have you here, Mr. Stevenson. Master of Wine, Liam Stevenson was one of the youngest masters of wine in the world and is a celebrity in the global world of wine. Liam founded the Red and White Wines Limited in 2005 with the aim of becoming the finest small wine merchant in the country, sourcing bottles that were not just exceptional in terms of quality, but each told a story of their own. Please welcome this wonderful panel, which is going to talk about shaping the future of the hospitality industry. Thank you.
Can you hear me at the far end of the room? Yeah, we just realized there is nobody at the far end of the room. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and very warm welcome to this session. It's my privilege to have been invited for the Golden Jubilee celebrations of Fhrai. and a very, very hearty congratulations to FHRAI. And before I proceed any further, may I, ladies and gentlemen, request everyone to put their hands together for the wonderful work that FHRAI has been doing for the last 50 years. It continues to be the voice of the industry and is doing a lot of yeoman work and yeoman service. Interestingly, we've been asked to speak about shaping the future and a view from the top. I must confess that I'll be sorry to disappoint you if our view is not necessarily from the top, because I think we're only about 3 feet higher than where you are. But having said that, I have with me a very, very distinguished panel of achievers and people who work in the hospitality industry and who shape the hospitality industry. Another thing, when I was sort of thinking about what is it that we're going to talk about today, where have we moved really?
I keep asking myself, how many
out and so those are some of the changes which have happened, which have not been greatly successful to my mind, except that it's
about design, not just about service, but about design. Lots of new hotels, new openings focus more on design.
restaurant without anything changing on that restaurant except the prices.
Lose our cultural heritage around food because it's who we are. It shapes us. It gives us our identity. And people feel very passionate about their primary and their secondary socialization around food because it's about them and their upbringing. And that's very important to us all, wherever we come from in the world. And yes, the modern. The problem is with the modern is that everyone wants to be a Heston Blumenthal, molecular gastronomy. But in reality, very few people can, because they can't understand it. And it becomes dangerous when you don't understand it. Many years ago, I warned about the use of liquid nitrogen in restaurants. Liquid nitrogen is, if you don't know what you're doing, it's dangerous. Minus 196 degrees centigrade. Yeah? There's been 2 cases in the UK of dangerous accidents with liquid nitrogen. In one case, where a cocktail, they poured liquid nitrogen in a cocktail, and a customer drank the cocktail and burnt their stomach. They're now being fed through a tube. This is sheer ignorance. To actually work with molecular gastronomy, you have to know what you're doing. And many chefs don't, unfortunately. They try and copy Heston Blumenthal. Heston Blumenthal is a scientist. He's a very well-educated man. He knows what he's doing. You just can't copy someone like that. And many people are. Water baths. Everywhere I go in kitchens, they're using water baths. Yeah? Now, water baths can be quite dangerous. In fact, one environmental health officer has stopped the use of water baths in one major event, the Royal Albert Hall. They will not allow them to use water baths because of the danger involved in low temperature cookery. And one environmental health officer said to me that there is danger waiting to happen. Somebody's going to get very sick by not knowing what they're doing. And also, too many chefs cook for themselves. They don't cook for the customer. We have to be customer driven. We have to understand what the customer's needs are, customer expectations. And when we talk about traditional food, one restaurant in London is called the Wolsey in Piccadilly. Now, I know it very well, because my brother-in-law happens to be the executive chef. And occasionally he rings me and says, do you remember that dish we used to do at college, and we used to deglass the pan with whiskey. What is it? Archduke. How do you do it now? I told him how to do it. Put it on the menu, flies out the door, classical dish. I said, try Chicken Maryland. Chicken Maryland on the menu, flies out the door. Now they do 250 lunches, 300 dinners, 200 breakfasts. It's making money. It's what the customer wants.
So the Wolseley, of course, is a phenomenal restaurant.
Phenomenal.
It is my favorite restaurant, and I'd recommend anybody who's in London and, in Piccadilly, go visit the Wolseley. But as a warning, please book at least 3 or 4 days in advance. You're unlikely to get a table there in a hurry. But having said that, I think, coming back, David, to your point, that in India, because of the size of our population, we want to do sushi because there's a lot of sushi eaters here.
Oh, absolutely.
Very soon, David, we will have more sushi eaters here than there are in Japan.
Yeah, and the same in
We have more Chinese food eaters in India, that is Indian Chinese, of course, than they have in China.
Yeah, but I agree. And of course, if that's what the market wants, then the market should have it. And it's the same in London. Sushi shells in London. But when I come to India, I don't want to eat sushi. I can eat sushi back home. Yeah? That's the important thing that we have to get across to people. There is room for everyone. There is room for all different styles. But the most successful restaurants in London are the ones that are selling the traditional food with the occasional signature dish.
Right.
Most of it is traditional.
All right. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the sort of final section of our discussion. And we have, with us Leon, who is a very, very rare breed of professionals. He's a master of wine, and last I checked, there are about 250 of you across the world. 350. There are 300 now. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about wine. India was a few years ago was not really necessarily a great wine producing or wine drinking country. Of course, I have to tell you that it's the largest consumer of whiskey in the world.
I've seen it.
Right? And but having said that, wine is something that is growing. It's an acquired taste for us, but it seems to be growing leaps and bounds. In the last, I would think, 7 years, we've grown from about 1.3 million liters to 5.2 million liters of wine that is being sold in the country.
I think we may have time for a couple of questions. Does anyone in the audience have a question? Yeah, we have a gentleman in the back and we have a gentleman in the front. Can we have a mic amongst the audience, please?
Thank you. My question is, it can be taken by the Indian side of the panel, any of them. In the 1,500, 2,500 rupee rooms and the budget, what you call in India, I find that room service, Indians who visit demand room service from everywhere. And one of the reasons for that is that they are so spoiled by the ladies at home, the wives and the mothers, that from ironing their shirts, their trousers, to getting a garam chapati, to being served a cup of tea, they tend to not go down even one floor down where there may be an ice making machine to pick up a bucket of ice. Even if they find an electrician walking by, they will say, "Bhai zara ice le aana, darwaza khol ke." They will stand there and they'll say, "Get some ice." What do you think about room service in budget hotels? Is it a trend that is going to stop? Are Indians going to start working themselves in hotels, carrying their own tea, bringing it out? Or you think that even if you charge 2,500 rupees, you will still be, room service will be demanded of these budget hotels?
In the future, maybe like we tried it out in Ginger. We used to handle the food and beverage for Ginger. And we tried it out in Ginger with no room service and ultimately had to cave in with some room service. We had to do limited room service. What I'm finding is that we run about 5 or 6 hotels in Gujarat. We thought there'll be no room service, people will come down and things of nature. They're sitting down there, having a drink, and want their food served to them. That's what's happening.
Yeah, I think it's going away, Said. It will have to go away because the cost of running room service is rather high than to the returns. But I must tell you that yesterday's first discussion, and that panel obviously had the benefit of a very pretty lady, which I didn't have, regretfully, was that, yes, I'm dealing with it, was Mahima Chaudhary was asked something about hotels in Indian hotels, and I think her only differentiator was that I love Indian hotels because you get room service. So yeah, it is something which is very well ingrained into the Indian system, but I think it's going to change with time like many other things. We'll take one more question, if there is any.
Gentleman in the back there.
I would like to introduce myself, J.P. Mahapatra from Bhubaneswar. I also belong to Ahmedabad. I have also resident of that place. Everybody now talking in the world regarding the environment. So it's a planet, 7 billion dreams, consume with care. So how? Hoteliers, my colleagues, they are compatible.
Sir, can you
with
speak a
this-
little louder, please? Hold the mic.
I must admit, on the stage, we're unable to sort of hear you very well.
Yeah, exactly. I am coming to the specific point, how you are compatible to this trend. This is the millions theme this year. You got it or not? Rather, I will explain it in a
What's
better
the trend you were talking about? Sorry,
I'm
can you
talking
repeat?
about environment friendly. The hotels and resorts. Are you compatible with this environment, which is a global phenomena, is rising very fast? Otherwise, the human race will extinguish, other species will extinguish.
Right,
This is
right.
the right concern exactly. And second question, I would like to raise to the wine master. Last night, I have already got the dinner. The cocktail, I have already observed. Specifically, India is a country, it is called the diabetes capital. Specifically, whiskey is concerned. That is the demand for wheat whiskey. That is the Johnson brand. How you give some suggestions to the wine master, I am the questioning, to that hotel fraternity. How we can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. I think, let me first have the first part of the question, and I think we have one of the pioneers of sort of environment sitting here. Param has been instrumental in doing a lot of work with the Orchid brand, which was the first sort of green hotel in India. So Param, are you going to answer that?
The question was whether are you comfortable with the environment and you think it's the trend going to stay? If that's the question, yes, the answer is yes. People are concerned. Today you can't read a newspaper, sit through a TV program or any magazine without the word environment hitting you. And so it is something which has come. And any investment into environment in terms of equipment and things of that nature, pay back immediately. The savings are incredible, guests are happy, staff cut down costs, and the owners are happy.
Right, thanks. And I think you want to say something,
One
Zubin?
quick perspective I'll put to that environment thing. And today, it has, of course, it is a way of life and it's reality. But there, I would put it under two categories. One is where you actually take initiatives and do things to educate the customer. You involve the customer. You put a card on his pillow saying that you would get certain rewards if you do not allow your sheets to be changed, etc. But now there is another initiative, and ITC Hotels took a lead in that, where the entire back-ending of our processes are taken care of entirely. So you can continue to have a guilt-free indulgence, but all the water that you consume and all the carbon dioxide that you may generate in whatever it is that you're doing is actually being taken care of at the larger perspective at the corporate level. So today, we just cannot get away from it, and it definitely is going to be, and it has been to some extent, it's going to be a differentiator to your ability to be able to drive business going forward as well.
And for those who are interested in environment, sorry sir, please sit down. This is the gentleman to speak to. ITC runs the world's largest platinum rated LEED hotel. Also, the corporate office for ITC is a platinum rated LEED building, so a lot of work on environment and a lot of work on vendor development, path breaking stuff done by ITC. Those who'd like to engage with Zubin later, please feel free. We're going to conclude this by the answer on the wine question, which was asked by the gentleman there.
Thank you. It's always a difficult one to ask the question, is wine good for you? I'd like to say simply that it is, but I can tell you this. It's difficult to say that alcohol is a good thing for you or a bad thing for you, but there was a big research project about 15 years ago in England, because we couldn't understand how we appeared to eat a relatively healthy diet, and in France, the French were eating foie gras, they were smoking 60 cigarettes a day and drinking a litre of wine, and living for 15 years longer than us. And it was called the French paradox, and they did a lot of research, and a lot of the research showed that the health properties in wine were beneficial. Now, obviously, alcohol has its issues, but there are elements of wine, particularly red wine, which are very good for heart issues. Some believe there's some anti-cancer properties in red wine as well. So the anthocyanins, the bits you find in the skins, do have elements which are supposed to be health-giving. But more than that, I think wine is one of the most convivial social drinks you can possibly have. It brings people together in a very generous way. And for me, that seems to make my life more healthy. So, yeah, I would encourage you to drink red wine, but not too much.
Red wine contains antioxidants, which kills off the free radicals that actually produce cancer cells in the body, and that's been proved. So there are benefits to drinking red wine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lamba, and thank you, panelists. I request Mr. Smita Parikh to please come on stage and present Mr. Lamba with a memento thanking him for his time this morning. I request Dr. Suborno Bose to present a memento to Mr. David Foskett. I invite Mr. Dilip Agarwal to present a memento to Mr. Liam Stevenson. Please, sir. I request Mr. Manveer Chowdhury to please present a memento to Mr. Mohan Chandran. Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. I request Mr. Ashok Singh to please present a memento to Mr. Kanambili. Mr. Ashok Singh, I request you to please come forward and present a memento to Mr. Param Kanambili. In the presence of Mr. Singh, may I request Dr. Subarna Bose to please come back on stage and do the honors. Thank you. And I request Mr. Pranav Singh to please come on stage and present Mr. Sankatwala with a memento, thanking him for his time and insights this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together once again for that wonderfully engaging panel on trends today and shaping the future of Indian hospitality industry. It's time now for lunch. There's a little change in the schedule post-lunch. We'll begin with investment opportunities in Odisha. That was originally scheduled as the second session post-lunch. This will now be the first session, followed by a conversation on creating tourism destinations. Lunch is of course being served at Vatica, and at 2:15 we have the wine education and tasting session, which will happen at the Cellar. I thank our sponsors who've made this event possible. There's a lovely Peeply Bazaar organized at Mini Vatica for the spouses. Exhibition stalls are in the basement, and there's an exciting little selfie booth just outside. Do click a few pictures and put them online. I'll see you back here in exactly 1 hour. Thank you.